Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I am bringing you my July wrap up, which, considering I had the big weekend at Yelk and I felt a little bit slumpy before and after that, I'm quite proud of how much I managed to actually get read. So in the month of July I read 14 books. 14, which is kind of my average-ish, I think. But the total number of pages was 5,539 and I spent 33 hours listening. I did quite a few physical with the audio on this month, and I think that was a massive help on like reading in general. I feel like I would have slumped a lot harder than I actually did if it hadn't been for that, so that's good. I also did not DNF anything, which means that's 2 months in a row with no DNFs. Get me? I'm very happy with that. But I managed, so I not only had a quantity month, but I had a pretty quality month. So I had no 2 stars, I had 2 3 stars, I had 4 4 stars, and I had 8 5 stars. So all in all, a pretty good month. I will say a few of the 5 stars were rereads for me, but we don't need to talk about that. Okay, so the first book I read in July was The Power of Hades by Eliza Rain and Rose Wilson. This was a 4-star. I really enjoyed this and I'm definitely going to be continuing the series. I really liked the whole aspect of the reason why she gets pulled into the underworld, and the story behind that is starting to be really fleshed out. Considering this was like less than 200 pages, I think we got quite a lot of information for the time we had with it, but I'm definitely going to be picking up the rest of this series to see where else it goes, and I have questions that need answering. I also really enjoyed the fact that this has a like trials aspect. Really love that. So yeah, all in all, really enjoyed this, and I believe it's a Kindle Unlimited book. I got it when it was like 99p on Kindle, so I got it quite cheap, but I'm pretty sure it is also available on Kindle Unlimited, so yeah. Next up we have Only Love Can Break Your Heart by Catherine Webber. This one was a 3-star. I didn't actually enjoy this one as much as I thought I would. I really didn't like how the main character treated people and how another character, or a few other characters, treated her. There was a lot of the miscommunication trope as well, which I just feel like the way it was written, it wasn't a necessary trope to be added in, so I didn't enjoy it. Like, I'm not a fan of miscommunication trope, but sometimes it can be written in a way that it's readable and I still end up enjoying the story. But unfortunately this was one of the times I didn't dislike the book, I just didn't love it. And it's not made me want to not try anything else by Catherine Webber. Obviously I have read Twin Crowns and loved it. That is fantasy and it is also co-written, and I've read the first book in the series, one of the series that she's co-written with her husband. But I do want to try some more of Catherine Webber's solo books. So this definitely has not put me off of trying more of her books. It's just, I'm glad I've read it, but I have unhauled my copy, so yeah. Next up we have The Butterfly Assassin by Finn Longman. This one I really enjoyed. This was a 4-star. I actually have the ARC copy, but I was a little bit late reading it. But I really enjoyed this. I really like the mystery element of this. Like, there are some things that even now you're still wondering, so I'm very excited to read the second book, and I believe the author has already, I don't know if they've started writing it or they are about to start writing it, but I am very excited to see more from this author. This was their debut book, so I'm excited to see more in and out of this series because the writing was really good. I really connected with the character in some things, not others. Can't say I've been in the same situation as the main character in some of these things, thankfully. you know, what with the whole assassin thing. But I really enjoyed the way it was written. I really enjoyed the characters, and the world was very much a like our type of city, but with a twist. You could tell it wasn't our world, but also it kind of was, but it hadn't been written like it was our world. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really enjoyed this, and I am very excited to read the next book when it does come out. The next book I read was Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood. This was the final book in the 3-book series of novellas that Ali Hazelwood has written, and I really loved this. Obviously it was a 5-star. Are we even shocked at this point? No. This was actually my second favourite of the novellas. And obviously there is 3 novellas. This is my second favourite. I really enjoyed the characters in this, and I really loved the conflict and the resolution and everything. This one was probably the most far-fetched way of them coming together. However, in the actual story, it made sense how this could happen, so it didn't feel far-fetched. But I really enjoyed this. The smut was good, as always. And I don't know what else I can say about Ali Hazelwood, because I'm just obsessed. Like, Ali Hazelwood has me in a chokehold. I will read anything she writes. Next up, we go to my worst book of the month, The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This was a 3-star, but this was like the lower 3-star. I gave some spoilery thoughts in my vlog. I did the whole holding up my hand while I was giving spoilers and everything. So if you want to check that out, it is there, I think, or there, one of them. However, there is a trope in this which I absolutely hate with my whole heart, and I don't think it was necessary. So yeah, it is a shame because I was really enjoying it up until that point. However, this trope is just one that it instantly, usually it's an instant DNF for me. However, I was quite far into it and I was intrigued about the plot. Plus, Chloe said to try and finish it if I can, so I did, and I am glad I finished it. I do want to continue the series, however I will not be purchasing them. I will look to my library to read the rest of the series because I don't want to own them. I'm never going to reread them once I've read them once. So it is a shame because this was one of my most anticipated books, and I have to write a review for NetGalley because I got a NetGalley of this, so that's going to be interesting. But I wouldn't not recommend anyone to read this. I want to just make that clear. It is very much a me thing with this whole trope, so I would never say don't read this book, but it wasn't for me, unfortunately. Next up, we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and oh, friends, this was a 5-star. I have been saying since I got this that I didn't expect to love this because I am not a fan of slow burn. I do not like slow burn romances, and this is slow burn. However, this was so well written and I fell instantly in love with all of the characters. Like, they were just so lovable. There was a found family aspect of this which just warmed my cold, dead heart. And I was like sobbing in parts, like full on. I loved this. I will be 100% rereading this at some point. And if you want to read this, I recommend also having the audiobook because I really liked the audio. And I'm so glad that I didn't take the fact that it was slow burn to not read it. And I will say to you, if you're not a fan of slow burn, still give this a go. Also, it is sapphic. And I'm here for it. And I'm just, even the side characters, like the found family, they were all just so amazing. There is a lot of rep in this. Obviously, I can't talk on the non-bi rep because it is not my rep. I can only talk on the bi rep, but I think the bi rep in this is really good. And I just love the character so much. Next up, we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This is a 5-star. If you watch my vlogs, you're probably getting sick of me saying this, but this has a fanfic element which just made my entire heart happy. It was what drew me to the book in the first place, because I actually got this book before I had got properly into contemporary romances, and I was drawn to this book because of the fanfic aspect, and it did not disappoint. And also, the smut in this is amazing. I am also very excited for the sequel because it follows the best friend of him, and he is such a lovable character that I'm really excited that we get an entire book for him. But I really liked the fat rep in this. Like, there is some fat phobia. I will say that there is some fat phobia aimed towards the main character, not by him. Want to make that clear, not by him. But I really love her confidence and her body positivity, and it was just so refreshing to be able to actually see myself in a contemporary romance, because I said this in my vlog as well, like, I only ever read, I think, one other contemporary romance series where the main character is plus size, and it was just so refreshing to see it again, and I'm just like, I want more of this, please, and thank you. Next up, we had one from my backlist. It's Shadow and Flame by Mindy Arnett. I've had this book since it came out in, I think, 2019, was it? 2019. I read the first book in this duology back in like 2017 or 2018. And then I got this one when it came out because I wanted the matching hardback, and then didn't read it. And I'm going to be honest, the only push I had to read it now, and this is no reflection on the book whatsoever because this was a 4-star, the only push I had to read it now was because I buddy read it with Meg. If I hadn't buddy read it, this would just be another one of the books that just gets left on my shelf and me not finishing series, like, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. There was a bit of a touch and go at one point because I thought that it was going to go in a certain direction, but it didn't, and I was really relieved. And I do think the ending felt a little bit rushed, and I would have liked a proper epilogue because there wasn't one. It was just a chapter from a character's point of view, and it was set like a few days after or a few weeks after. I would have liked a proper epilogue. Unfortunately, I didn't get that. However, from what I've heard and from what Meg's told me, there is the possibility of a like spin-off sequel series where it follows a different character and their journey, because there were a few things unanswered about that character which I would kind of like answered. But overall, this was a really good sequel. I think if this had been the second book in a trilogy, it would not have worked. The pacing would have been all off, but because it's a duology, this worked really well. I thought the pacing was just right for what it was, and I do highly recommend these. Next up, we have Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I loved this. This was a 5-star. I loved everything about this. I'm trying to word my thoughts without spoiling. I thought all the characters got the perfect story arcs for each individual character. I really enjoyed the characters. I don't think I had any issues with how it ended whatsoever, apart from the fact that I don't have book 3. And I am glad I've read it knowing that there is going to be a book 3, because if I'd known, I mean, it wraps up pretty well. I would say that this could work as a duology, and I think it was originally a duology. But it's actually going to be a trilogy, and I'm happy with that. Like, so happy. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say without spoiling it, but the way the story went was just literal chef's kiss. I honestly, so happy. Next up, we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This was another 5-star. I knew from like the first day's buddy read pages of this that this was going to be a 5-star. It would have had to do some pretty bad stuff to not get a 5-star. And by pretty bad stuff, I mean bringing in the trope that this one did. But it didn't do that, so I'm good. This had a love V in it, which I was so here for. I'm intrigued to see how the whole story develops, because right now I have no clue really how the second book is going to go, and I'm so excited to find out. But the world was absolutely beautiful, and I have no words for how much I loved this. It was just absolutely incredible. I just want book 2 so badly. The next one, I'm not gonna really spend any time talking about this one because it's The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This was my 4th reread, so my 5th time reading it since November. I have no shame. I'm gonna be honest. I love this book with every single fibre of my being. Like, this is like my favourite book ever, and I just have such a fun time reading it. I actually ended up adding a few more tabs, not many, there was like 3 new ones I added that I hadn't added last time I read it and tabbed. And I love it so much. It was what I needed. I knew I was already gonna reread it this month, but I decided to reread it when the Atlas 6 did the thing that I didn't like. I took a break from the Atlas 6 for a day, and in that few hours I read this, and I think it put me back in a neutral zone before I went back into the Atlas 6. It sort of like neutralized my anger at the trope in the Atlas 6, so thank you. We're nearly at the end. The next one I read was Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. Obviously, again, this was a reread. Not one that I've read 5 times in like 6 months, but, well, 8 months now. But I really enjoyed my reread of this. I had a fun time tabbing, even if I cried a lot. I'm really excited to discuss this on the live show, which is actually gonna be the day this goes live. So it's tonight, Wednesday, the 3rd of August. So very, very excited to talk about this. So much happens in this. The love interests, like the little like love, I know it's a love V, but I maintain with my little shipping heart that it's a love triangle. The love V, love triangle isn't canon, it's just in my head, but the love V was sort of very much developed on in this book, and I just love it. There's not often that I love a love V, but this one writes it just perfectly, and I just have no words for how much I love it, because it is just perfect. And also, Jem Carstairs is the love of my life. I love him. Next up, we had my heart broken by my reread of The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. This was a 5-star again, obviously. The thing I love about this is, a lot of people say read this before you read the actual Throne of Glass series, and I say no. I mean, if you want to do that, fine, I'm not going to stop you, but I personally think the best place to read it is after Crown of Midnight. So you read Throne of Glass, you read Crown of Midnight, then read this, then read Heir of Fire. I think this one slots perfectly there, because you have you know the basics of Selena and her story, and how you kind of know very little about how she ends up where she does at the beginning of the first book, and this fleshes out that story. But also you meet some characters that are going to possibly be relevant later in the series, and I just, oh, I love it, even though it breaks my heart. It is 5 short stories, and the final one is the one that breaks me a lot. And I'm not going to say anything more than that, because I don't want to spoil anything, and I also don't want to cry again, because I cried in my vlog. And then the final book I read in July was The Shadow in the Glass by JJA Harwood. I actually ended up really enjoying this. This was a 4-star. When I started reading it, I wasn't actually sure with the direction it was going, because it was very much, it's very much a historical setting, but there is a fantasy aspect. The fantasy aspect isn't as big as I thought it would be though, which is why I wasn't sure when I started reading it, because I sort of figured out pretty quickly it was going to be very much historical setting with a fantasy twist. So I wasn't really sure, but I ended up really enjoying this. It was hard to read at points because when you think about how the characters are treated, that is how real life people in those times were treated, and it is really hard. And I say people, women, how real life women were treated in those times, and it was a really tough read in that sense. But I really liked the fantasy aspect. I loved how it was a very twist. It was a twist on the Cinderella retelling. It wasn't a direct Cinderella retelling. It just sort of took aspects of the classic Cinderella story we know and twisted them and made them dark, and I actually really enjoyed that. So yeah, really enjoyed reading this, and I'm glad I did. Also, this is a gorgeous copy. Like, this video does not do those edges justice. It's a really, really nice shade of green, and I love it. Okay, so that was all the books I read in July. My favourite book, it's absolutely no shock that it's Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood. But if you look at it this way, that is the last month for a while now. You're going to have an Ali Hazelwood book being my favourite book of the month. Because when I'm looking at my favourite book of the month, I don't look at rereads. And I've now read everything that Ali Hazelwood currently has out. So the rest of the year is actually going to get some other books as my favourite, or other authors as my favourite. So yeah, I will say though, if there wasn't a new Ali Hazelwood book that I'd read this month, Daughter of the Moon Goddess would have been my favourite book of the month. So I definitely think that is getting an honourable mention at the end of the year when I do my favourite books of the year, because I just loved it so much and I want to shout about it more. But let me know in the comments below what your favourite book you read in July was. I always love seeing what everyone's favourite book they read was of the month, because I am nosy like that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!